Welcome to Mexico Unexplained, where we will explore the magic, the mysteries, and the miracles of Mexico. This series presents information based partly on theory and conjecture. The podcaster's purpose is to suggest some possible explanation, but not necessarily the only ones to the subjects we will examine. Here is your host, Robert Bitto.
Welcome, and muy bienvenidos to episode number 128 of Mexico Unexplained, where we examine the magic, the mysteries, and the miracles of Mexico. I'm your host, Robert Bitto. The date was Saturday, December 1st, 2018. The place was Mexico City's Zócalo, one of the largest public squares in the world. The nation of Mexico was celebrating the inauguration of their 58th president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. After the swearing-in ceremony before the Mexican Congress, the new president appeared on a makeshift stage in the Zócalo to take part in a purification ceremony before addressing the crowd of tens of thousands of people. Spiritual healers from various indigenous groups blessed the new president with brushes of herbs and through incantations over incense. This great square was no stranger to ceremony, as it was once the civic ceremonial center of the Aztec Empire. For hundreds of years, the heart of Mexico City has been a special place of sacred rites and rituals involving great pomp and circumstance. On this Saturday afternoon, not all eyes and camera phones were fixed on the cultural spectacle on stage. Many attendees looked to the sky and were amazed at what they saw and what they were able to catch on camera. One eyewitness, Ángeles Rincón, appeared on a local radio station describing the pomp and circumstance in the sky. Some 40 orbs hovered over the ceremonies and moved across the sky in linear fashion. The radio show host asked Ángeles rapid-fire questions. Were they balloons from the inauguration ceremony? Were they drones? Were they reflections off of the clouds? The eyewitness answered no to each question. Others began calling in and relating what they had seen in the skies over the momentous event. Small silver and white orbs hovered, flew in lines, and quickly darted away. Several camera phones caught the action in the sky, and soon amateur video popped up on the internet. No one could explain what was happening over the heart of Mexico City. As seasoned UFO researchers will tell you, what happened on Inauguration Day was nothing new for this metropolis of over 25 million people. Even before the Spanish arrived, the Aztecs recorded seeing strange things in the sky over their own capital city, which is located where Mexico City now sits. A glowing object streaking across the heavens even made it into the Aztec written records. It alarmed Emperor Montezuma to a great degree, and many priests of the day considered it a bad omen. For more details on this celestial event, please see Mexico Unexplained episode number 68, titled The 8 Omens of Montezuma and the End of the Aztec Empire. In the modern day, UFO researchers consider Mexico City to be a hotbed of UFO activity. Is it because Mexico City has always been a special place, or is it based on the sheer numbers of people? With so many people and so many recording devices available to Chilangos, or Mexico City residents, it's really no wonder why reports of UFO sightings over the capital city occur with such regularity. A mass sighting may involve tens of thousands of people or more. To note, one of the most witnessed UFO events in human history may have happened over the Mexican capital in a time before cell phone cameras. On July 11, 1991, Mexico City was preparing for what was called the eclipse of the millennium, a total eclipse of the sun lasting 6 minutes and 45 seconds, which was to occur over the Mexican capital in the early afternoon. With people looking to the sky numbering into the millions, according to some estimates, hundreds of thousands of people noticed a shiny metal object hovering in the near distance a few minutes into the eclipse. It was metallic, disc-shaped, and rotated. Guillermo Arreguin, a cameraman for the Mexican television network Televisa, who was filming the eclipse, got footage of the object. It was broadcast on Mexican television later that night. After that broadcast, 17 other people came forward with similar video cam footage recorded from various parts of the city. With so many people looking up to observe the eclipse, this July 11, 1991 sighting may have been the most observed UFO experience in human history. The eclipse of the Millennium sighting happened some 40 years after the very first mass sighting over Mexico City, which occurred on March 28, 1950, over the international airport. The next day, the headlines of the newspaper La Prensa proclaimed "Plato volador en la capital" in bold capital letters, taking up more than half of the front page. In English, this translates to "flying saucer in the capital." The sighting happened in the morning, in the 7 o'clock hour, and lasted some 2 hours. Pilots, ground crews, and airline passengers marveled at the gigantic disk that hovered over the airport. Mexican authorities contacted the U.S. Embassy, and the Americans sent members of their military attaché to the airport to observe, but like their Mexican counterparts, they had no explanation for what they were seeing. The Americans would have their own UFO flap over their own capital city 2 years later, as a fleet of flying saucers would appear in the skies of Washington, D.C. in the summer of 1952. As Mexican ufologists are proud to point out, Mexico was first. Since that initial sighting in 1950, social media and video sharing sites on the internet like YouTube have become popular venues for disseminating amateur videos of UFOs. The massive adoption of camera phone technology in Mexico starting around the year 2010 has helped to bring this about. Quick online searches combining Mexico City with UFO, or the Spanish equivalent OVNI, yield a huge variety of UFO footage from the silly to the thought-provoking. As with UFO video clips coming from anywhere, it is up to the viewer to discern the deliberate fakes and hoaxes from the legitimate objects that are not identifiable. In many cases, it is hard to tell what's what. Because of the sheer numbers of people on the ground looking up, there is great diversity in the UFO sightings over Mexico City. UFOs can take strange shapes or can appear as traditional saucers or orbs. Often they are seen in groups, sometimes classified as flotas, or fleets. One of the largest so-called fleets appeared over the site of the first mass sighting in Mexico City at the international airport. On December 16, 2015, sometime in the mid-afternoon, a fleet of some 100 unidentified flying objects appeared in the airspace over the airport. Some of these objects darted about, but approximately 30 of them formed a V formation and moved slowly over Mexico City at around 3 p.m. A few hours after that, the alleged fleet had dissipated, and by 5:30 eyewitnesses reported a lone large white spherical object moving north to south over the airport, gaining in altitude as it flew away. Some thought that this was some sort of mothership. Later that day, a 767 reported flying under this same large spherical object near the Gulf of Mexico. In the great variety of UFO experiences in Mexico City, there exists a tale of a possible alien contact, one of the first in the nation of Mexico. It happened on the morning of August 19, 1965, a few years after the famous Betty and Barney Hill UFO abduction in the United States. The setting for the alleged Mexico City close encounter was a vacant lot outside the National Polytechnic Institute. Two brothers, Yayo and Payo Rodriguez, saw a saucer-shaped craft hover over a lot, and then it landed after extending its tripodal landing gear. The two brothers claimed that a group of small humanoid beings wearing respirator gear exited the craft and approached them. A member of this extraterrestrial landing party then placed a small metal object at one of the brothers' feet. Yayo and Payo took the metal object to the school's laboratory for study, and when news of the encounter spread, newspapers sent investigative teams to the landing site and took photographs of the visible burn marks on vegetation in the vacant lot and what appeared to be strange liquid on the ground later characterized as fuel. The tests on the small metal object left behind were inconclusive. Some leading Mexico UFO investigators have dismissed the Rodriguez UFO encounter as a hoax. The next month of the same year, seemingly in honor of Mexico's 155th anniversary of independence from Spain, another UFO flap happened in the nation's capital. Some 5,000 phone calls flooded police and aviation authorities on September 16, 1965, and people were reporting the same thing. 6 luminous objects hovering over the National Cathedral and the ancient Templo Mayor complex by the Zócalo. Traffic seized up along the Paseo de la Reforma as people got out of their cars to view the spectacle. The objects hovered over the heart of the city for about an hour, and perhaps 100,000 people saw them. Eyewitnesses described what they were seeing in both extraterrestrial and spiritual terms. One of the luminous objects would return on September 25th and hover over the city center again before darting away at incredible speed. 2 days later, 2 of the same objects would come back in the early evening hours, and this time flew lower. Witnesses saw them buzz over the gilded dome of the Palacio de Bellas Artes in Alameda Park. Someone waiting for a bus described the objects as, quote, enormous luminous bodies with intermittent sparkling lights, end quote. The sightings of 1965 in and around Mexico City were so intriguing that newspapers from around the world carried stories about them, including such faraway publications as Kenya's Mombasa Times. Marta Susana, the bleached blonde talk show host, decided to take on the Mexico City UFO issue on July 11, 2000 on her popular television program. A series of incidents happened in February of that year involving members of Mexico City's police force. On Valentine's Day at 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 police officers saw an object 10 meters wide hovering over a soccer field near a school. The object was disc-shaped and projected an array of multicolored lights as it hung suspended over the field. The flashing of the lights intensified, and the object began making a whirring sound. One of the patrolmen called in for backup, and soon a dozen or so other policemen bore witness to the strange craft. The UFO disappeared at around 2:20 a.m., and curiously, the policemen's wristwatches were frozen at that time and could not be made to work again. The object reappeared at 2:45 and again at 3:10 in different parts of Mexico City, all logged by police officials. 2 different patrolmen tried taking photos of the object, but not a single photo developed properly. The same force operating on the police officers' watches, apparently, was operating on the camera equipment. The Marta Susana talk show included some of the police officers from that night and air traffic controllers on one side and a group of skeptics on the other. Over the course of the hour, the 2 sides hashed it out in a skeptics versus believers fashion, and although they did not come to any conclusions, the show made for some good daytime drama for bored Mexico City housewives. As one of the largest cities in the world, Mexico City has been for many years a hotbed of UFO activity. With many eyes toward the sky and the overabundance of camera equipment in the hands of common citizens, UFO skeptics and serious researchers alike can look forward to ample material to sift through in the foreseeable future. Thank you once again for listening to another episode of Mexico Unexplained. Remember to like and subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Twitter. Tell your friends by sharing these shows with others. Please go to our website, MexicoUnexplained.com, for references, illustrations, and for free access to transcripts of past shows. Please visit Amazon.com to purchase the book Mexico Unexplained, to get a hard copy of The Magic, the Mysteries, and the Miracles of Mexico. We appreciate your kind attention once again. Until next time, thank you and gracias.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Mexico Unexplained with host Robert Bitto. For show summary, relevant links and commentary, please check out our website at mexicounexplained.com. Like us on Facebook and be a part of the conversation. Adios and hasta la vista.